In the beginning of this film, we are shown a Father Brennan who has come to meet another priest. He had committed a very big sin. When asked about it, this priest shows Father Brennan a picture of a little girl. The picture was normal, but not the girl. The priest tells Father Brennan that this girl was not born naturally. The name of this girl was Shanna, about whom he does not tell anything to Father Brennan, and goes into a deep thought. In the flashbacks of his thoughts, we get to see a girl. The girl's whole clothes were taken off, and black cloth was tied to her eyes. The people standing in front of her were performing some ritual. The girl was very scared. Suddenly, she hears someone's roar from her side. And the scene is cut from here. We are shown to the priest again, who is about to tell about a girl Shanna to Father Brennan, that suddenly a pole behind him breaks and collides with a mirror. And the same pole gets stuck on his head, and two parts of his head are formed, which causes him to die. Many years after this, we are shown the scene of Rome in 1971. At this time, the people of Rome were protesting for civil rights. And at this time, Sister Margaret comes from America to Rome, where she had to take oaths for becoming a nun. She had to promise in front of everyone that she would spend her life as a nun. Two priests from the orphanage come to take Margaret. One of them was Cardinal Lawrence. He was now retired. But still, he was so happy to receive Margaret, as if his own daughter had come back from America. Now she comes to the orphanage, where she notices that most of the girls live in this orphanage. She is made to meet two sisters here, who take her to her room while visiting the orphanage. Then she meets a girl named Carlita. Carlita was very strange in appearance. As if her mental condition was not good, she was making scary sketches sitting here. In one of the sketches, Margaret sees that she had made a sketch of a girl who was screaming lying on the bed, and nuns were standing all around her. We find out that Carlita is really crazy because now she had started licking Margaret while standing. And in this way, the sister takes her away from Margaret. Margaret comes to her room and meets her roommate. Although she was also a nun, but she used to do all the work secretly. That is, she used to go to parties and enjoy her life. Days go by, Margaret was trying to settle down here in the orphanage. But every passing day, something strange happened to her. She used to get strange visions in this orphanage. She even sees some ghosts or things in the orphanage, which she ignores. While living here, Margaret learns the ways to live here, also tries to learn the local language. She gets very attached to the children here. But she notices that Carlita, the girl she met on the first day, does not get along with ordinary girls. The orphanage forcibly locked her up in her room. And the reason behind this was that she had some bad thoughts, some bad visions, and she was kept away from everyone for treatment. Margaret also noticed this on the first day. All these things were told to Margaret by Carlita's class fellows. Margaret was surprised that even though Carlita was only 12 years old, she did not look like these ordinary little girls. In fact, she was a big adult girl. Anyway, it's night now, and Margaret comes to her room. She sees that her roommate was getting ready to go to a party. She forces Margaret to come with her to the party. She puts on party dresses and brings her to the party. These people have a lot of fun here. Here, for the first time, Margaret drinks in life. And after getting drunk, she dances with a boy. While dancing, she tries to lick the boy, that is, she tries to put her tongue to his face, just like Carlita licked. And after doing this, she becomes unconscious. And when she came to her senses, she was on her bed. She was worried about what happened at night. But her roommate tells her not to worry. Nothing wrong happened at night that you should be worried about. She didn't remember anything about the night. But still she didn't get good vibes. And she blamed herself for all this. That at least she shouldn't have drunk. And because of her sins, she also apologizes to God. Then when she comes out of the orphanage, Father Brennan comes to meet her, whom we saw at the beginning of the movie. He tells Margaret that you should not trust anyone who lives in the orphanage. And yes, remember, don't go to Carlita at all. He asks her about a girl named Shanna in the orphanage. Margaret remembers that a girl named Shanna does not live in the orphanage. But yes, she had seen the name Shanna in Carlita's drawings. Father Brennan now gives her his address and says that must listen to me. If you have any questions or difficulties, you can come to me." Contrary to what he said, she starts coming closer to Carlita in the orphanage. Because she started feeling pity for Carlita. She noticed that none of the nuns of the orphanage talked to Carlita. She was always in a scary and lonely room. In the talks, Carlita tells Margaret that she gets strange visions, from which she gets scared. Margaret tells her to relax. "This is not a big deal. I also used to get very scary visions in my childhood. Then with time, they are over. This is normal." These words of Margaret give courage to Carlita. Now they were talking that suddenly they hear someone screaming in the orphanage. When Margaret goes there, she sees a girl giving birth to a child. But Margaret was seeing that a demon's hand is coming out of her stomach. And seeing this, she gets so scared that she becomes unconscious. Margaret was also bothered by the fact that if all the girls lived in this orphanage and no one was married, then who was the father of these children? She goes to the priest after being scared of all these things. His name is Cardinal Lawrence. He explains to her that you have seen something like this for the first time. Maybe that's why you were scared. After this, she comes to the orphanage garden, where all the girls were enjoying with the nuns. The strange thing was that the nuns and children were drinking cigarettes very easily, and no one was stopping them. She sees that a nun is talking to Carlita in secret, and she is also showing her a drawing. Margaret immediately goes to Carlita and sees the drawing in her hand, in which a picture of a girl was made, and there was a child in her stomach. There were nuns all around her. She tells Sister that you should not show this to Carlita. She is a child. These things will have a bad effect on her brain. She was talking to Sister when suddenly Sister holds her face and kisses her. No one notices her doing this. After that, the sister who kissed goes to the roof of the orphanage and puts petrol on herself. She, in a very creepy way, was looking at Margaret and Carlita laughing. She says to both of them that this is all for you. After which she burns and attached and dies. There is chaos in the whole orphanage. Even Carlita and Margaret were in a bad condition after seeing this. After seeing so many strange things in this orphanage, Margaret remembers Father Brennan, who told her to be careful in this orphanage. To know the mystery of this orphanage, she decides to go to Father Brennan. Father Brennan tells Margaret that I told you to stay away from Carlita, because she is an Antichrist. That means she does not believe in Jesus Christ. She is a threat to our religion. The people of the orphanage and the church associated with the orphanage have been doing secularism for a long time. It means they're working to destroy their religion, Christianity. And this is a big threat to the world. Father Brennan now shows Margaret the same photo, which at the start of this movie was given by a priest of this orphanage. In this, there was a photo of a girl named Shanna, about whom he did not know much. And about this child, that priest wanted to tell something to Father Brennan. Now Father Brennan gives this work to Margaret, and says that you collect information about the child named Shanna from the orphanage, so that we can stop all their bad intentions. But Margaret did not believe what Father Brennan said. She goes from there. But before leaving, she agrees to do one thing for Father Brennan. Father Brennan had asked her for information about Carlita, which she agrees to collect, because she herself wanted to know about Carlita's past. The next day, when all the children of the orphanage were being taken on a trip, Margaret on this trip asks the new priest of the orphanage about Carlita, asks about her past. But this priest did not know much. Anyway, these people could not talk much, because the sisters sitting in front of them were constantly keeping an eye on them. When these people go back to the orphanage, Margaret tries to ask Carlita about her childhood, but Carlita goes to a room in fear of her. As soon as Margaret follows her, she sees that Carlita had the soul of that sister or ghost sitting next to her, who died in front of both of them. And seeing this, she gets very scared. When she screams loudly, another sister comes here and takes her away from here. In Rome, at this time, the civil rights struggle was on the rise. There were riots outside. There was fire everywhere. The orphanage could not get out of the danger of Margaret, but she did not want to stay here either. She comes out of the orphanage. And here she feels that someone is pulling her from behind. But we did not see anyone here. Anyone who was pulling her from behind. Only the nun standing in the orphanage can feel him. Now this sister calls a meeting of the sisters. And here she tells Margaret that you should leave this orphanage. So in the future, you could never be seen near Carlita. Also, you do not need to take the oaths of being a nun, because you are mentally unfit. After hearing all this, Margaret gets angry at her sister. That not with me, but you are harming Carlita. In anger, she comes out of the orphanage again. And when she comes out, she sees the same boy with whom she had danced in the club. Margaret notices that this boy was very scared of Margaret. That's why she goes to that boy and asks him, "Tell me what happened to me that night. Did I do something bad to you?" On which this boy does not answer her and says, "Look for the devil mark." As soon as he says this, the boy has an accident and he is killed here. Margaret, who was trying to save him, she gets this boy's half body. He was half cut in the middle. And seeing this scene, the people standing here are also scared. Margaret now gets tired of all this, goes to church and begs God to forgive her sins. We see that Margaret's roommate, who had come here to take oaths for the nun, today she was finally taking oaths to become a nun. And Margaret, taking advantage of everyone being busy, goes to a secret room of the orphanage, where she finds the files of Shanna, the same file that Father Brennan had asked her to bring. But the surprising thing was that there were 14 files of a girl named Shanna. All the files had a 666 mark, which is the devil mark. These 14 girls named Shanna were born at 6 a.m. on June 6th. Almost all of these girls were killed, and Shanna 14 was alive. And Shanna 14 is actually Carlita. And Margaret finds out that Shanna 14 was born 12 years ago. And Carlita was also 12 years old. Margaret now understood why Carlita looks so adult to other children. Because she is the daughter of the devil. The files clearly stated that Shanna 14. That means Carlita should be kept away from other children. That's why the orphanage kept her tied in the room. Margaret understood a lot of things, but a lot of questions were still in her mind. She picks up all the files from here, takes Carlita, and starts trying to run away from here. But the nuns' eyes fall on her. Here the nuns catch them. When they were freeing them, Carlita was screaming. And at this time, Margaret sees the 666 mark in her mouth, which confirms to her that Carlita is Shanna 14, and she is the daughter of the devil. Margaret was also kept in a separate room. Margaret falls asleep in this prison, and in her dream, she sees a very scary girl. She gets up out of fear. And the surprising thing was that the same girl soaked in blood who was in her dream, she now stood in front of her, was scaring her. Margaret screams loudly. Hearing Margaret's screams, here the church priests come to her. They relax her. And seeing her condition, they decide to take her to Father Brennan, because Father Brennan also tried to tell these priests the truth about this orphanage and this church. But like Margaret, these priests also didn't believe in Father Brennan's secularism. But now, looking at all these things, they found Father Brennan's words to be true. That's why, with all the files named Margaret and Shanna, they come to Father Brennan. Here Margaret tells Father Brennan that you said that the signs of the devil are on the bodies of girls. But Carlita had a 666 mark in her mouth. The priest who was shown to Father Brennan at the start of the movie, who had given a photo of a girl named Shanna. She had a 666 mark on her body. It means that Carlita was not the girl that was on the photo, whom Father Brennan was looking for. That is, Antichrist is some other girl. Father Brennan now understood this thing, that all the information given to him was incomplete. The people of the devil's cult deceived him. These people check the files again and see that in the file of Shanna 5, the photo was missing. The photo that Father Brennan had, it was fixed in this file. And from this, Father Brennan finds out that Shanna 14, that is, in addition to Carlita, there is another Shanna who is Antichrist. And she is still alive. Looking at her date of birth, they find out that Margaret has the same date of birth. That is, Margaret was the real Antichrist. Knowing this, Margaret is shocked. Her condition becomes strange, and she remembers everything about the party night. She remembers that she went to the club. She drank, and she didn't do all this herself. She was actually made to do it by the nuns of that orphanage. After which the nuns of the orphanage made her fainted and brought her to some unknown place and did the same ritual with her which was done with a girl who was seen in the beginning of the story. And that girl was Margaret's mom, with whom the devil had done injustice. And the visions Margaret used to have, she was her mom. And now the devil had done something bad with her. As soon as she remembers all this, she remembers the girl from the club. She looked for the devil mark. After finding out about it, she gets the devil mark on her head. And it is confirmed that she was Shanna 5 herself, the one who did secularism, the one who finished Christianity. In this orphanage, this cult group kept Margaret away from the orphanage for so many years, so that at the right time, they can use Margaret for their ritual. She now knew that she was pregnant with the devil's child. She didn't want to give birth to this child. She told this to Father Brennan, and Father Brennan, after listening to her, decided to take her to the hospital. But on the way, the orphanage people got her car into an accident. Margaret was again in their custody, whom they took her to the orphanage. When she went to the orphanage, her body suddenly started to become demonic, meaning she herself started to become a devil. Meanwhile, her stomach got very big. The next morning was June 6th. Margaret's baby, the devil's baby, was about to be born. We already know this, that all the people of the orphanage are involved in this. Coming here, we realize that Cardinal Lawrence, who was the leader of this cult group, why was he so happy when Margaret came back? Because he wanted an Antichrist, a son of Satan, who would take the place of Jesus Christ in Christianity. He was ending Christianity, and Antichrist would have been born when the daughter of the devil would have given birth to the children of the devil, and Antichrist would have been a boy. For this, he called the devil jackal to the world. He first came close to Margaret's mother. Then Margaret was born. After 21 years, he came close to Margaret again. As a result, a boy and a girl was born to Margaret. The boy was Antichrist, and Margaret knew this. Margaret, whose heart was not demonic, was not Satan. She didn't want to give birth to Antichrist. She didn't want to keep him alive. She took a doctor's blade and first killed Cardinal Lawrence, who was the leader of this cult group, and then tried to kill her own son. But sister took her and ran away from here. Carlita, like Margaret, was the daughter of the devil, and to give birth to Antichrist. These orphanage people were taking care of her. After all, what is the purpose of these orphanage people? They believe that the world has gone far from Jesus, so they call Antichrist and scare everyone, and take everyone back to Jesus Christ. These people told this story to everyone. This was not the truth, actually. These people believed the devil to be God. These people worshiped the devil. The sister who ran away with Margaret's child calls Margaret's roommate from behind. That now we don't need Margaret or her daughter. Set her on fire here. Margaret's roommate here attacks Margaret with a knife and runs away after setting fire on her. But here, to save her life, Carlita enters, who believed Margaret to be her sister, because Margaret had a good time with her. She saves Margaret and her daughter and takes them away. And in the same burning fire, Margaret sees the devil, who did bad things with her. The scene cuts, and we see all the nuns have a meeting. One of the nuns tells about a big American man who was about to have a son. Their plan was to kidnap his son and give him their Antichrist, that is Margaret's son, who the Antichrist, that is Margaret's son, will raise her in a good family. According to the plan, the rich man is given the Antichrist, that is Margaret's son, who grows up after some time. The scene cuts. On the other side, we are shown Margaret, Carlita, and Margaret's daughter, who is living far from everyone in snowy area. were living like a happy family. That today, Father Brennan comes to them, Margaret stands up against him and tells him to please leave. Father says, "Okay, I'll leave. I didn't come to disturb you. I just came to tell you that the people of orphanage knows that you are alive and that your life could be in danger, and yes, your son is also alive." After telling this, Father Brennan leaves. And this story ends here.